Welcome to Star Wars Characters Explained, Chapter 2, The War of Exar Kun. Now before we begin this story, if you haven't yet seen Chapter 1, I highly recommend going back and checking that out first. And if you're going to enjoy this chapter, be sure to subscribe so you can join me for Exar's grand finale in Chapter 3. After expelling the spirit of Freedon Nard and embracing the dark side, Exar established his dominance over the Massassi and ordered them to build great temples that followed ancient Sith designs, which were supposed to draw in and focus extreme amounts of dark side energy that Exar hoped to one day harness. The power of the dark side was now Exar's obsession, and he would do anything to obtain it, and alongside the great temples, the Massassi built monuments and statues in his honour, revering him as their god king. Alongside a temple built personally for Exar, the Massassi were forced to build a temple that would come to be known as the Palace of the Woolamander. Inside this temple, Exar built a strange golden sphere, a darkside artifact that held the very souls of all of the Massassi children, drawing upon their energy to increase his own as well as to further his control over the species. As some time passed, Exar was eventually drawn back to the Temple of Fire, in which he finally gave into the dark side, believing that the Sith Wirram he destroyed was placed to protect something valuable. When he arrived, he looked into the dark pit from where the Wirram came and jumped in. To his shock, the Sith Wirram was protecting a giant hangar that harboured Naga Sadow's flagship, known as the Corsair, which brought the Massassi species to Yavin 4 a long time prior. But although elated at finding the ship, his new way off-world, Exar was drawn to something even more mesmerising. An alchemy lab which belonged to Naga Sadow himself. Inside the lab were Sith scrolls and teachings that had long been lost, and Exar was particularly interested in the teachings that taught the ways of creating and modifying living beings. To test some of his newfound knowledge, Exar convinced Priest Sithmanir into being his first subject, by claiming that the ritual caused no pain and that he wanted to turn a warrior into a god. The Massassi priest was placed into a machine, and Exar channeled the dark power of the Temple of Fire, melding it with his alchemy.
Let's see if the Sith writings speak the truth, or whether they are the mad mutterings of superstitious ancients.
After an excruciating transformation, Sithmanir emerged. His body was fused with a form of biometallic armour. His bones and muscles increased in size, his skin hardened, and deadly claws had developed on his hands. To further this, using his own physicality as a template, Exar infused Sithmanir with the dark side itself, allowing the priest to feel the touch of the Force. And despite the priest's suffering, Exar deemed this a success, and proceeded to experiment on other Massassi, as well as many other creatures on the moon. Sometime afterwards, after he determined that the Corsair was perfectly preserved, Exar was ready to fly off-world and bring about the destruction of the Sith magicians taught by Freedon Nard's spirit that threatened his dominion, which his amulet warned him about. Exar jumped out of hyperspace over the planet Empress Teta, landing the Corsair away from the capital city of Sinagar. Taking two Massassi with him, Exar ventured into the city, and as he walked his amulet began to glow, indicating that not only were his enemies near, but they possessed an amulet themselves, the mate of his very own. Knowing of the danger that the amulet posed, Exar knew he would have to act quickly, but before he could go any further, Jedi bombers as well as flying war beasts appeared out of nowhere, breaching the Citadel's defences, attacking the city. Following the path led by the Jedi and Teton defenders' destruction, Exar finally made his way into the Iron Citadel, the royal palace of Sinagar. As he announced his arrival, the Jedi Ulic Qel-Droma and Alima Keto were embracing one another, who immediately turned to the fallen Jedi. Ulic ignited his lightsaber, and Alima began to conjure some form of Sith magic, but with a single blast of pure dark energy from his amulet, Exar removed the Sith magician from the duel, igniting his own lightsaber and engaging Ulic. The fight was fast, aggressive and intense, but the two were so evenly matched in their forms, neither could break the other. However, as their lightsabers clashed, dark energies began to swirl around the two amulets, engulfing the two men in a vision, showing them what seemed to be the old Sith Empire. A being wearing a horned helmet approached the men.
Cease! You are the chosen.
Ulic and Exar looked upon the menacing figure, bewildered.
I know him. I've seen his remains on Korriban.
It matters not who I am. I complete your initiation, Exar Kun. Because of you, the Sith will never die. You have earned the title Dark Lord of the Sith.
The Sith being reached out, laying 2 fingers on Exar's forehead, burning a mark, a symbol of the ancient Sith, into his skin. As Exar anguished in pain, the being turned to Ulik, declaring the Jedi to be Exar's foremost Sith apprentice, burning the same symbol onto his skull too.
In my time, as the Republic battles us to extinction, we secure the future, when the Sith will take their revenge.
As the vision of the Empire and the Sith man dissipated, the newly declared Sith Lords, radiating with unfathomable amounts of dark energy, clasped each other's hands.
Together, we will bring down the galaxy.
As their planned war was on its eve, Exar and Ulik strove to conquer the entire Empress Teta's system. Exar unveiled a super weapon that he had unearthed on Yavin 4, the Dark Reaper, and coupled with a machine of his own design known as the Force Harvester, the 2 machines would combine, and the energy drained from the Harvester would become a deadly purified beam of destruction projected by the Dark Reaper. Through Alima's Krath cult, the Dark Reaper was used to destroy any resistance in their conquest of the system. But after 6 months, Exar knew that his conquest would require more than just he and Ulik, and so he travelled to the Jedi library world of Ossus in his repaired Starstorm 1. Exar's business, as well as his fall from the light, had gone almost unnoticed within the Republic, and using this to his advantage, he posed as a Jedi Knight, preaching to a gathered crowd about how their Order and Masters had failed them, refusing them access to forbidden knowledge that he could offer instead. To boast, he revealed that it was he who had destroyed the spirit of Frieden Nard, a spirit which had been involved in the death of respected master Arkajeth. To back up this claim, he revealed his Sith amulet, calling it a Jedi amulet. Through it, he revealed a vision of him destroying Frieden Nard's spirit once and for all, avenging the Jedi Master. He left the Jedi students to ponder upon his proposal and stumbled across a hut in the Great Library, where he overheard Jedi Master Odin Ur talk with Nomi Sunrider about a rare Sith holocron that he intended to find. Exar waited for Nomi to leave, and when she did, the holocron in Odin's hand began to glow crimson red, and it began to shake. Then, it was swooped out of his hand by an unknown force. He looked over to Exar Kun, a stranger to him, but a dark presence nonetheless.
Dark Jedi. Away!
The Jedi Master summoned a blast of light-sided power out of his frail body to fling Exar across the room, but his power was minuscule compared to the intruder, who arose and declared himself not a Jedi, but a Dark Lord of the Sith, and retaliated, blasting him with power amplified by the amulet, knocking the 1,000-year-old Jedi Master to the floor. Odan became one with the Force, watching in his last moment as a new evil had acquired an artifact of great power as he passed. The group of Jedi who he was preaching to rushed to the scene after looking for Exar, and were shocked to see Odan's passing. However, Exar lied, claiming that Odan had offered the Jedi holocron as a gift after promoting him to Jedi Master, and that he simply passed of old age. Some of the gullible Jedi, including Os Willem, his former friend Credo, Zona Luca and Nayama Bindo, accepted Exar's explanation and agreed to follow him. The group of almost 20 Jedi got aboard the Starstorm 1 with Exar, and while the ship was en route to Yavin 4, he found a private moment to contact his apprentice. After explaining that he acquired his Jedi, Ulik explained that he had gained the loyalties of the Mandalorians, and that he had plans of his own.
I am attacking Coruscant at once.
Fool! You'll jeopardize my whole plan. We must build slowly. Then we will attack together.
The Mandalorian leader, Mandalore the Indomitable, interjected.
I don't know who you are, but Ulik and I can handle Coruscant.
Very well. Prove your manhood. If you fail, I will go on without you.
The Starstorm 1 exited hyperspace over the stormy moon of Yavin 4 and landed in the dense jungle. Exar took the Jedi through it towards one of the temples. However, Os Willem expressed his fear that the moon was shrouded by the dark side, and that perhaps Exar was not being truthful. He turned back, but was jumped by a group of the native Masasi. The rest of the Jedi ran to his aid, igniting their lightsabers in his defense to fight off the creatures. But Exar called them off, expressing the truth that Yavin 4 was indeed a place of darkness, but that he was intent on purifying the moon with the light. Although some such as Credo truly believed in him, others were not still fully convinced. Exar stood upon the steps of his own temple, admitting that the holocron was in fact Sith, not Jedi, but that he would use his power of the light to destroy it. He ordered the Jedi to raise their hands to protect their eyes from the blinding light of its destruction, and wore a sinister smile as he shattered the ancient relic. The holocron itself contained the spirits of long-dead Sith, and while some escaped as purple mist, others found a new home. Countless amounts of sharp shards from the holocron were flung towards the Jedi, stabbing into their raised hands and being absorbed into their flesh. Through the shards, the Sith spirits invaded the minds of the Jedi, showing them the power of the dark side and corrupting them, their thoughts almost becoming the Jedi's own. Credo, however, wasn't affected but stayed loyal to Exar regardless. Exar reorganized the group of Jedi into the Brotherhood of the Sith, and their first task was to eliminate their own Jedi Masters. Credo was sent to help Os, as Exar planned to deal with their own master, Vodo Bas. Exar watched his new Sith leave the moon in their own ships, and as he prepared to leave in his own, to his surprise a ship entered orbit and landed near him. Mandalore himself came down the ramp, explaining to Exar that Ulic had been captured by the Republic and was being sentenced on Coruscant. Unsurprised but seeing opportunity, going against his original stance, he boarded Mandalore's ship and headed to Coruscant along with a group of Massassi warriors. Landing on the planet without any resistance, the group marched into the Republic Senate Hall, with Exar using a form of Sith magic to freeze the crowd. He freed a thankful Ulic and made his way up to the pulpit where the Chancellor stood, while Ulic and the Massassi held off some unfrozen Jedi defenders. The Chancellor attempted a futile swing of his stick towards the Sith Lord, which was blocked, and Exar grabbed his head, using the amulet to take control of the Chancellor like a puppet, proclaiming through him that the Republic will fall and the Sith will rise, all while the frozen onlookers watched in despair as the Chancellor died when Exar released his grasp. With his announcement made, Exar, Ulic, Mandalore and the Massassi began to make their exit. However, Master Bas stepped out, insisting that Exar speak with him. Exar sought to use this talk to convince Vodo to join the Sith, but as expected, his master was resilient. He was instead trying to convince him to rejoin the Jedi. But both of their efforts were unsuccessful, and Exar ignited his cyan blue blade, while Master Bas simply raised his stick, just like on Dantooine before. The fight between them was vicious and fast-paced but precise, a showing of two elite duelists. After several minutes, neither managed to gain an upper hand, and Exar stepped back for a moment. To change things up, he raised his lightsaber in the air, revealing something that had never been seen before. From the opposite end of the hilt, a second blade ignited, something that Master Vodo had no real understanding of to defend against. Exar, now wielding a completely unique double-bladed lightsaber, pressed the assault on his master, outmaneuvering him completely. After a few more minutes, an accepting Bas warned Exar that this would not be their last fight, but the Sith Lord, like he did on Dantooine, sliced utterly through the centre of Master Bas's stick, but this time it struck him down. The Krevaki Jedi Master became one with the Force, and Silva, distraught at the loss of Bas, rushed towards Exar, but he threw her back with the Force, and the Sith Lords left the planet, returning to Yavin 4. Exar's war was causing major devastation. System after system was being conquered by the combined Krath and Mandalorian forces, and the Republic was being stretched on multiple fronts. To add to things, the Dark Reaper was causing unstoppable chaos, and the Brotherhood of the Sith had crippled the Jedi Order, with 8 of the most highly respected Masters being assassinated. And despite the deaths, failures and capture of several members such as Os, Zona and Neyama, the war was currently a massive success. Exar, Ulic and Mandalore discussed what to do next, especially with the traitor Alima. But a ship arrived and a defeated Credo exited, begging Exar for forgiveness after he failed to help Os defeat and then get captured by Jedi Master Thon. Exar, although internally angered, forgave him, but he saw this as an opportunity. The Corsair, Nargisadal's flagship, would finally be used in battle. The ship harboured a Sith superweapon that contained crystals with enough power to pull the cores out of the stars. The Corsair was to lead an attack on the Kemplex 9 jump station to draw out the Jedi and Republic fleet, so the super weapon could be used to destroy them. Elima, intent on seeing the ship's power, and Credo, intent on making up for his mistakes, jumped at the chance to lead the assault, to which Exar slyly agreed to. Exar and Ulic, however, covered up their true plan, using it as a ruse for their real goal, to open a simple pathway to the Jedi library on Ossus while removing the treacherous Elima and the nuisance that was Credo from the equation, although Exar felt some slight regret sending a loyal subject to his death. Exar and Ulic stayed on Yavin while the Corsair was on its mission, and after some time they finally felt what they were waiting for, a major disturbance in the Force. Elima and Credo had succeeded in using the super weapon on one of the 10 stars in the Kron cluster near Complex 9, destroying the Jedi Republic force as well as themselves, killing 2 birds with 1 stone. The weapon made 1 star implode, causing a chain reaction supernova between them all to shockwave the whole system, and as they planned, Ossus was last to be hit. They immediately set course for the doomed planet, which was in a state of panic and worldwide evacuation. Ulic and a group of Mandalorian fighters entered the atmosphere first, and were engaged by his brother Kay and a number of Jedi defenders in the sky. Using this as a smokescreen, Exar was able to get inside the Jedi library without resistance, and as he walked down the ramp of the Starstorm 1, like an emperor claiming a conquered land, he ordered his Massassi followers to strip the library and load the loot in the ship. A Jedi Master known as Ood Banar was trying to hide ancient Jedi lightsabers and scrolls inside a shielded vault that he hoped would protect them from the supernova. However, as he gently placed them inside, he felt a dark power emanating from behind him.
Exar Kun.
Ah, Master Ood. Thank you for saving these artifacts.
The tree-like Jedi Master activated his green lightsaber, prepared to protect the artifacts with his life. In turn, Exar activated his own unique lightsaber, and the 2 dueled. However, Ood was no match for Exar, a master duelist, and was also being overwhelmed by the Massassi Guardians defending him. In a last-ditch suicidal act, Master Ood, like a tree, rooted into the ground of Ossus over the artifacts, throwing back Exar with the Force and doubling in size, connecting with the planet's Force energy and becoming immovable. However, Ood was doomed, as he could never move from his state. And although Exar was disappointed in not getting the lightsabers, his Massassi plundered enough loot for him to consider the raid a success. As he returned to the Starstorm 1, Silver, once again out of nowhere, tried to jump Exar, but was crowded out by his Massassi protectors, again deeming a duel with her to be unimportant. Exar rose from Ossus, leaving Silver to the Massassi and leaving the planet to its fate, returning to Yavin 4. However, he also left Ulic, who was suffering from his own fate, unbeknownst to his master. Ulic lay on his knees, distraught, crying after killing his own brother in a fit of rage and being stripped from the Force by Nomi Sunrider. After the darkness clouding his mind had dissipated, he finally realised the things that he had done, and the things that Exar was going to do.
I know where to find him. I can take you to Yavin 4.
Exar stood atop a temple of his own making, oozing with confidence, but he was completely unaware that his war was about to come crumbling down in the blink of an eye. And as one man learned to find redemption in the light, another was soon to learn the suffering of imprisonment in the darkness. I really hope you enjoyed this chapter, and I'm so sorry it took so long. These past few months have been difficult for me, and I just want to thank all of you in my community, especially those in my Discord server, for supporting me. Speaking of Discord, I implore you to come and join. I'd love to have you there. And I also want to thank Sith Rain for voicing Ulic Keldroma. Go and check out his channel. Make sure you like the video, follow me on all social media, and do not forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell, so you know exactly when Exar's finale is released, and I promise the wait won't be as long. I will see you guys in Chapter 3, The Fall of Exar Kun. But until then, may the Force be with you. Always.